Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of The Drip. Today I am flying solo, as you can tell. Anthony is, actually, Anthony just stepped in. Hold on one sec. Hey, there you are. So glad you could make it. Oh, cool, yeah. I'm just kidding, guys. Obviously you can tell Anthony is not actually here. As of right now, we were about to record and he had to step out and take care of something. So, okay. Yeah, I'll let them know. Yeah, definitely. So, what we're going to be doing today is I decided, when Jonathan and Anthony were co-hosting The Drip in the past, they both had an opportunity to share their testimonies with you guys. And so if you guys have not checked them out already, I highly recommend you go back and watch not only Jonathan's testimony, which I think to date is one of still our top most viewed videos. As of right now, it has just over 66,000 views, if you can imagine that. That is just incredible. So thankful that Jonathan was able to be here and to share that testimony, and hopefully that the impact of that is wide-reaching. So I'd really recommend to you guys go back and watch Jonathan's testimony, and you can also go back and watch Anthony's testimony as well. And he talks about how he basically, very much like Jonathan, gave up his former life to pursue the full-time ministry call. So that's what I'd like to share with you guys today. So thankful to be able to be here and to be able to share this with you guys, and hopefully you can see, as I'm able to see from my own testimony, how faithful God has been. And we'd love to hear from you guys as well. So feel free, share some of your thoughts down in the comments below. We'd love to hear and to see how God has been working in your guys' lives. So without further ado, I'm Coby Schaefer, and this is The Drip. So, my testimony starts way back when I was really, really young. I don't remember exactly how old, maybe 4 or 5. But my babysitter for a number of years of my life in my hometown, she was actually a teacher at the local church that was nearby, right down the road from my house. And so she was a Sunday school teacher there. And it was because of that connection that my parents actually ended up sending both me and my older sister to this church just for Sunday school. I remember it was sometime around noon. It was after church had finished, and so I had gone to the Sunday school for many, many years. My parents never really went to church, but they at least were like, well, we'll send you guys to Sunday school, and I don't think that would have been the case if this lady was not also our babysitter. But because of that connection that we had, they ended up sending us to this Sunday school. And I look back really fondly on this time. It was, I think I was there until I was maybe 11 or 12. And really, it was just so incredible to see. And as I continue to study now, to see as I read the Bible, there are things that I remember because I was taught them back then in Sunday school. I mean, even there was, one year where we did this song, because we did like an Easter and a Christmas program, and we would always do some songs. But there was this one song that we learned that was all 66 books of the Bible, all of their names and in order. And actually, even to this day, as I'm flipping through my Bible and I'm trying to remember, okay, where is this book? I recall the song in my head so that I can actually remember, okay, where is this book in relation to this other book? So again, just cool to see how all of that knowledge that was there and was the product of people teaching me and pouring into me. That didn't just go to waste. I'm so thankful. I'm so blessed to have been raised that way, and not in a Christian household, at least not for the early part of my life, but at the very least, I was sent to Sunday school. And so, even though I was in Sunday school, I would definitely not say that I was saved during this time. I think I had the knowledge, at least the head knowledge, of the work that Christ had done. But it wasn't until I was a little bit older, I think 10 or 11, going into 3rd grade, at a VBS, that I actually started attending because of the Sunday school that I was going to. They knew the other church, and so they connected us with them. And so we started going to this VBS. Went for a number of years, and it was great fun, and that was pretty much why I wanted to go, because it was a lot of fun. But when I was going into 3rd grade, I think, again, 10 or 11 years old, is when I really know, and I can, consciously pinpoint, at least as close as I'm able to, the understanding of not just the knowledge of what Christ had done, but really the understanding in my heart of what that meant. And it was, during this time, during this week-long VBS, that I would say that I really accepted the Lord as my Savior, and I bent the knee to Him in submission. And I don't think I really quite knew, like, okay, what was next. I don't know if I gave the church any reason to follow up with me or anything like that. I don't know if I shared with anyone. I don't think I did. But I believe it was also that same year that my two older sisters also came to know the Lord. And it was kind of because of them, and they being a little bit older, they really started pushing my stepmom and my dad to start attending this church. And so I kind of went along with them. And it was because of that eventually, not too long after, my stepmom ended up coming to know the Lord. And then shortly after, my dad also. And so really cool to see that this was not just something that was for me, but it was something that my whole family went through, and just so incredible. And so, after this time, my whole family started attending this church, at least my immediate family there, and we started getting involved. We started getting plugged in to the church. I think pretty much everyone had started having someone to disciple them, and so I think it was at this time that my dad and stepmom decided, I'm probably getting a little bit too old for Sunday school. And so I wasn't quite old enough for the church's youth group yet. But on my 12th birthday, I started going through a discipleship course with an older gentleman at this church. And I think we did it like once a month. I remember sometimes he'd pick me up from school, we'd go and get some food, and then we'd go back to church, and we had these booklets that we would go through, and we'd go through them, and we go and find the Bible verses and talk about all these things and what they meant. And I actually still have these booklets. I think there was like 16 of them. I actually found them not too long ago when I was visiting my dad, and I read through all of them. And I found it so interesting because they were pretty solid. And so I find it so cool that some of the things that I learned even then, when I was pretty young, are things that still stick with me today. And I'm just, every time that I see it, I'm so blown away, and I'm so thankful for the really foundational stuff that God had put in my life very, very early on in my Christian walk, even sometimes before I was actually a Christian. But so I went through this discipleship course with this man, and I think by the time I was done, I was old enough to start coming to that church's youth group. And so my two sisters had been coming for a little while because they were older than me. And so I started coming, and again, I met a lot of really great friends here, and a lot of people who would continue to pour into me. People, when I look back on it, I was like, man, they poured into me so much. I mean, they were the ones desiring to have a relationship with me and make sure that I was growing. And sometimes I couldn't even care less. But they were faithful despite my unfaithfulness, and thank God that He is faithful despite our unfaithfulness. But really, I have to attribute where I am right now throughout my entire life to the faithfulness of, yes, God, but also other people that God had called to do things, had called to pour into me. Had it not been for many of those people, I would not be sitting here right now. So I had a lot of people who were really faithful in just pouring into me and trying to help me grow and trying to walk alongside me as a brother in Christ, and I'm so thankful for that. It was also during this time that I started getting more involved in the church as well. I started serving. I started doing some stuff with they didn't really have a tech team. It was kind of just one guy in a sound booth with a soundboard. And to be honest, I really didn't do much, but I knew how to use technology, and so I was kind of interested in it. And so he let me start helping, and really I look back on it, I was like, man, I really wasn't doing much. I was maybe turning stuff on and muting and unmuting channels on a soundboard, and that was pretty much the extent of what I was doing. But I am thankful that I was serving, because that's something that continued on throughout the rest of my life. A couple years later, I started serving at that same VBS that I had been saved at years earlier. Once I was too old to actually attend, I started helping out with some of their games, and we actually did 2 traveling VBSs. We went over to the state of Vermont a couple times. Actually, I think we did 3. I only did 2 of them. And that was, again, really cool. We got to go over to another church who had maybe no VBS or a struggling VBS, and we got to come in and kind of help them along so that they could continue on doing of VBS, and that was really cool. I actually got to do that with my dad and also my brother-in-law, who at the time was just one of my best friends. But really cool, really great time. Some really fond memories of that. It was also during this time in my teenage years when my sister Kira, she had become friends with Emma, who's now my wife. We went to the same high school together, and I think they were playing softball together. And so because of that, they became really close. They became best friends. And she ended up inviting Emma to youth group, where she also got saved. She also came to know the Lord. And at this point, Emma and I weren't really friends. We didn't really know each other. She was just my sister's friend. It wasn't until a couple years later that we started getting to know each other. We started talking. We were hanging out in school because we played in jazz band together and things like that. And so we started to grow a relationship. And I think by the time I was 15, maybe almost 16, I don't quite remember, we started dating. And so it was again just cool seeing how this wasn't just something like going to church and serving and being involved. It wasn't just something that I did, but it was something that my family did, and even even something that my future wife was doing as well. It's just really incredible. Now, also during my teen years, there was another church that came to, or another pastor that came to our hometown with the intent of planting a church. And so he started doing a youth thing on like Wednesday nights after school, and me and my two older sisters, we were kind of the only three in attendance for like a good 6 months or something. But I remember about a year into his time there, he had actually bought a little office space in the town, and he had he planted a church there. And so he was still doing a youth thing after school some days. And so I think my sister and I, and sometimes Emma, we'd go there after school, and we'd go and hang out. We'd play some games. We'd learn about Christ. We'd have some food. And it was great. It was a wonderful time of fellowship. And I got to know the man. His name is Jeremiah Brinkman. I got to know him really well. Emma and I got to know him really well as some other people who were just really wonderful servants and really dedicated to hearing the call of God, but also acting upon that and doing what God had called them to do. So again, just faithful people who God had put in my life to pour into me when even sometimes, I was definitely struggling at this time as a teenager. Probably had definitely at this time had a full-blown addiction to video games. It consumed most, if not all, of my free time. It was pretty much the only thing I wanted to do. But because there were other people keeping me to a standard of, no, we should be doing this, I also, though definitely begrudgingly at some times, I made time for church. I made time for going to youth group. But, and sadly, my personal life outside of those things was pretty much exclusively for myself. And I would definitely say that during this time, and really this lasted until partway through college, I would definitely say that, was I saved? Absolutely, because I vividly remember submitting to the Lord at a younger age. But sadly, my life was really just full of living for myself and not so much for God. There were tiny times, tiny moments when, I would start to put aside those things, but there really wasn't a full, turning away, a full removal of those sins in my life until much later, really until the time that Emma and I got married. But at least during this time, again, God was faithful to put people in my life who were faithful to pour into me. Emma and I made a lot of good connections, a lot of good friendships with a lot of people. And so, interestingly enough, it was actually through our connection with Jeremiah that Emma and I got plugged in with Living Water Church. Emma's a year older than me. She graduated before me, and when she came down here to the Culinary Institute, she'd asked Jeremiah if there was a good church in the area. And I guess at some point he had sat on a council or something like that with Derek and Dana Duncan, who, if you guys don't know, they were the founders of Living Water Church many, many years ago. And so because of this connection, Jeremiah was able to connect us with this church. Emma started coming here, I think, before me when she had first started attending the Culinary. And then when I came to Marist, I think sometime in the fall, maybe August or September, I think September, is when I started coming to Living Water Church as well. And the rest is kind of history. We came here and we never left. But again, I was definitely struggling in this time. There were, a lot of things in my life, and still dealing with a full-blown addiction to video games, on top of, trying to make it through college. And I was a pretty good student, but unfortunately my video game addiction affected that quite drastically. But again, my Emma, who was still my girlfriend at the time, we weren't weren't engaged yet. She was incredibly faithful to make sure that we were going to church, to make sure that we were getting involved, we were plugged in with a small group. And honestly, had it not been for her, as well as many other people throughout my life, I would not be sitting here. And so I owe so much of that to my wife for being the one who was faithful in that time to get us here, to get us involved, to keep us doing the things that we should be doing. Now, fast forwarding a little bit, my wife and I got engaged later that year, and then I think the following year, it was 2019, is when we got married. And actually, because of our connection with Jeremiah, he actually married us, which was really, really cool. And so not long after, I think we had been attending a small group here for some time, and I had also recently started helping out with the youth group, which is something I still do now. And I remember Living Water Church was restarting the youth group. I think they had started it before, but they were restarting it. And I remember hearing the leader talk about it one Sunday, and he kind of just said, "Yeah, if you're interested, come talk to me." Me being the classic person who doesn't want to talk to people, I waited till the absolute last moment. He was literally getting into his car, and so I walked out after him into the parking lot, and I said, "Hey, I just, I really had to talk to you. I think I should help with the youth here. I'd really like to do that." And so I remember him. We kind of had a meeting a couple weeks later, and he said, "All right, so Coby, what do you think you can do?" And I was like, "I don't really know. I don't want to teach or anything like that." I was like, "I can do games." I'm thinking back to when I helped with the VBS, like I helped out with games. I'm like, "I can do games, cool." And so I was doing that for a little bit. Emma was helping out as well, and then that leader, he was struggling with some things. He ended up stepping down from that position. And I remember Derek. He came in one Sunday. And he looked at me and said, "Coby, I need you to pray about something. I need someone to lead our youth group." And I knew in that moment, I was like, I'm pretty sure he's telling me to do it. And so I did. I prayed about it for a while. I talked to Emma about it, and I told Derek that I would do it. And so he kind of just told me, "I want you to take it and run with it." And so Emma and I were involved with that for a number of years. We still do it now. And there was even a time when she was mostly running it because I couldn't get off of work for some time, and then we hit COVID, and that was kind of rough. We went from having like 12 or so consistent teens to just a handful, and that was a bit of a rough time for the youth ministry as well as many other ministries. But it was definitely a really, really interesting time for the church. We were going through a lot of change, but it was also a time of a lot of growth in my life, and again, faithful people to pour into me. Emma and I had started attending a small group at the church, and we started getting more involved in ministry. We started just helping out. I started helping on the tech team. Emma was teaching the doc, which I think she had been doing for a long time anyway. And we got to know a lot of people. We got really close with some people. Anthony and Janice being two of those and their family. We got to know people because we were serving and because we were doing ministry with other people. And honestly, it was, I have such fond memories of, those couple of years here at Living Water Church of just doing things within the body, and what a joy it was to serve. And honestly, this was pretty much from the point that Emma and I got married. This was definitely like the first time that there had been this kind of consistency in my life. I said earlier I had been struggling with very much so an addiction to video games for most of my teenage years. And it was really kind of at this point after the first few months of marriage that I really think God had kind of, put this matter to bed within me. And that was really, again, through the faithfulness of other people pouring into me, but really through just the working of God in my life. And so really since that point, which was, I don't know, 6 years ago, maybe, something like that. 5 years, I can do math. It's 2024, married in 2019. But really kind of since that time is really when I experienced this level of consistency and this level of growth within my life. And, again, I attribute that all to the faithfulness of God and to other people. But through attending this small group and starting to grow more in the Word, Anthony ended up asking me if I wanted to lead the small group. He was taking on more at the church. And I remember it was when we got the call about Derek, who went home to be with the Lord, that I finally told Anthony that, okay, I'm ready. I'll do it. I'll lead the small group. And so, he kind of told me, he's like, if you're going to do this, you're going to start experiencing, kind of like explosive growth. If you've ever led anything, you know that it forces you to grow. And so, went through this time of leading this small group for maybe about a year, maybe less. I don't quite remember. Anthony had started taking over the role of pastor. We eventually brought him on full time as a pastor, and the church still going through change and things like that. And I remember, I don't remember exactly when it was. I think it was sometime in February or maybe March. But Anthony had asked me a while back. He said, "How would you feel about preaching sometime?" And I, like the foolish person that I am, said, "Okay, sure." Really without thinking about it, but honestly, if I thought about it, I probably would have said no. And so, it was kind of at this point in my life that I had looked back yet again on, events earlier in my life. And I remember one day I was talking with my dad. I don't remember exactly what the conversation was about, but I do remember we always used to joke about this because back when I was in Sunday school, there was this little old lady who one day came up to me after one of our, Christmas programs, and she looked at me and she just said, "I just know you're going to be a minister someday, Coby," or something like that. And I was like 8 years old at the time, and I'm like, "Yeah, right, lady." And so it kind of became a joke, within my family of, what this little old lady said. And, I do find it interesting that, it seems like she was right. But I remember, talking with my dad and just, kind of telling him and really meaning it in my heart as well. Not that I was opposed to preaching or being a preacher or anything like that, but my sincere hope was that if that's what God had called me to do, that I would say yes. And so I remember when Anthony asked me if I would be willing to preach, this conversation was kind of on my mind. And so I said yes. And, it came time to preach, and I did it. We were somewhere in the book of Mark. I don't remember exactly where, but I remember after doing it, there's just kind of this feeling that I can't really describe as something just being right. And I kind of remember describing that to Anthony at some point, and really just not knowing what to do with that. And I think I'd been asked to preach a couple other times over the course of the next year, but really I couldn't shake the feeling of that just feeling right. And honestly, I'm very wary of following my feelings and not checking them against the Word of God. I think we absolutely need to be doing that. And so, I'd like to say I was pretty careful and pretty cautious and really just not sure, okay, what does this mean? Does this mean that I should look at pursuing ministry or what does it mean? I'm not really sure. And so, it was sometime later that I was talking with Anthony, and he asked me if I'd be willing to possibly become an elder of Living Water Church. And, I was like, well, I don't really know what that would be. I don't know what that would look like, but, sure, I'm willing. And it wasn't too long after that we started pushing towards that. Anthony was, discipling me and teaching me and training me up. That he instead told me, he said, "I don't think you should be an elder." He said, "I think you should pursue being a pastor." And so again, really didn't know what this looked like. But through talking with Anthony, we kind of came up with this ordination process. He kind of went through one, but we kind of made up this list of questions of things that you should be able to answer as a pastor. And it's this long packet. Anthony actually shared it with the congregation a while back before my actual ordination. And man, there are some doozies of questions in there. But for the better part of 2 years, Anthony worked with me through these issues, theological issues, doctrinal issues, moral issues, to really shore these things up. And so I've kind of, fast forwarded over a bunch of different events, but, this is really looking at the past 4 or so years of my life and just seeing, how God has brought me from, a person who just wanted to sit in the back in the sound booth and not talk to anybody, and has really made me into who I am today. And so I pursued this with Anthony, and he was faithful to teach me and train me for, again, the better part of 2 years. And now we're, sometime about a year ago, Anthony made known his plans to bring me on as a pastor to the congregation. And, then it kind of went through the process of, okay, well, what's next? How do we actually do that? And so a little bit later in the year, October, we had set an ordination date. And so for those of you who don't know, we're part of the Hudson Baptist Association. And so as a part of that, we invite them in to come sit in on an ordination council because we are of like mind with the HBA. And so not only that, but we also want to seek the counsel of other pastors as well. If we're going to bring someone into a pastoral role, we want to have a multitude of counselors who are there to test them and make sure that we're not missing anything as we bring someone into that role. So we set an ordination date. We invited a bunch of local HBA pastors. And then for those of you who knew back in October or maybe even attended yourself, we actually decided to make this ordination public. Normally, the ordination happens behind closed doors, and it's a group of pastors who, can pretty much ask the candidate any question they want, and then the HBA will, either recommend or, they'll recommend either to continue with the ordination or not to. And then the church can actually do whatever it wants, but in seeking to be like-minded with the HBA, we do want their approval. We do want their affirmation of that candidate. But this one was a little bit different. Anthony asked me if I'd be willing to do it publicly, and I thought, sure, why not? I've got no problem with that. And so that was actually one of the first things we did here in this building was my public ordination service. And that was interesting. Being up in the hot seat, getting grilled with a bunch of questions in front of the whole church, and even most of my family was there. Most of my immediate family was there as well. And praise God, the ordination went well. I got the approval from not only the HBA, but also our church's elders as well. And as you guys know, a couple weeks later, I was voted in as an official pastor of Living Water Church. And so, again, looking back on my life, just so interesting to see the foundation that God laid and where it brought me to, and even to get me to the spot where I am right now. And then, as you guys know, as of this year, as of May, I've been brought on full-time staff here as a pastor of Living Water Church. And again, just so thankful for the faithfulness of God throughout my life, the faithfulness of other people to be able to pour into me. And really, I so love seeing the whole connection with the rest of the body of Christ, understanding, how a small connection with my babysitter years and years ago led me to Sunday school, which led me to another church where I got saved, which led me to another church in my local town, which led me to Living Water Church, which led me to where I am right now. And I just think that is so wonderful. And even what's cool about that is we're actually still in contact with Jeremiah Brinkman. If you guys know of him, he actually works for the North American Mission Board. And so with our intent to plant churches, we're actually in connection with Jeremiah. He's one of the guys that goes around and helps train up other church planters to be able to send them out as well. So still cool that we have that connection, and I so love and enjoy that. There's probably a lot of details that I missed, but I'd be so happy to share them with you guys. Again, my testimony is I so love to look back on it and see how faithful God was throughout my life. And many people have a testimony that's full of hardship and how God literally brought them through that. And that is not to diminish their testimony at all. Those are so powerful, and those are so wonderful. And you guys might have a testimony like that, and I'd love to hear it. I'd love to hear about how God has been working in your life. But really, as I look back, and yes, there were struggles, there were absolutely hard times. There were countless times when I was struggling in my walk and really trying to understand what does it mean to be a Christian, and what does it look like to actually walk that out, and then failing to do so time and time again. But again, God is faithful even though I am not. He is good even though I am not. And so I attribute it all to the working of the Lord, that even from a very young age, from my parents putting me into Sunday school, to getting me to the point where I am right now. And honestly, I still have the entirety of my life ahead of me. I'm still fairly young, and so I'm so looking forward to how God is going to continue to use me. I want to be able to look back and continue to see how I am not the same person that I once was, that God is continuing to sanctify me as I walk out a Christian life. So with all that said, guys, I hope you have enjoyed this. I hope that me being able to share my testimony with you has been able to encourage you in your faith. And I hope that it encourages you guys to share your testimonies as well. These are things that, I think all of us as Christians can understand, we can relate to. There's hardship in our life, but we can also see the working of God in our life. And that's something that I think should bind us together as Christians, as brothers and sisters in Christ. And you know what? Use your testimony, use the working of God in your life as a means to share the gospel. We should view it that way, right? Your life can be a testimony, and you should absolutely use that as an avenue to share the gospel. So guys, really hope this has been encouraging to you. I'm so thankful to be able to do this, and really to the place that God has called me to today, to being a pastor. And even that, I've struggled through, okay, what does that actually mean? And what does that look like in my life? And ever since, preaching that first time and just feeling kind of an insatiable fire within my bones to continue doing that, I've been blessed to see how God has been faithful to raise me up into this role. And I'm so thankful. But guys, I would ask that you guys continue to pray for me as a pastor of this church, as one who, like Anthony, has been called to shepherd the flock. That is this flock, Living Water Church. But again, I hope this has been really encouraging to you guys, and I'm so thankful that I'm able to share this. Thank you so much for joining us again today for another episode of The Drip. So blessed to be able to share my testimony with you guys, and I'd love to share it with you more. I'd love to talk to you about it. I'd love for you guys to share with me. I love to get to know people and to see how God has been working in their life. So I think that's all we got for right now. So we'll see you guys on the next episode of The Drip. Has anyone told you that you're a really good listener?